What you fear, you feed. What you feed, you perceive, and what you perceive becomes your reality. So if I'm laying there and I go into fear, I'm now thinking there's something to fear in the room. And they're trying to teach me not to be afraid, that they're there to talk to me, to interact with me. And because I will make myself busy, they have to freeze me, basically. Now, they don't do it to me anymore, because when I wake up or when I feel them in the room, I'm consciously aware immediately, because I've been doing this so long. But think about what you would do. You'd fly out of bed and go, what is that? Right? So they don't have the opportunity to tell you they're there. And if you're in fear, it will feel like fear. So we want to remove the fear base and say, who are you and why are you here? In our heads, it's telepathy. And even though we're frozen, they haven't harmed you yet. So that's a good indication that they're not going to. I'm still here. I'm still, breathing and alive and doing well. And so in that paralysis, the only fear I feel is my thinking, because they've never harmed me. They're not there to harm us.
What happens when you cross to the other side and come back with a message that could change lives? In this unforgettable episode, Susan Grau takes us into the tender, transcendent moment when she died as a child, locked in a freezer, and met her angels. When she saw, felt, and understood in those realms beyond, will open your heart and awaken your soul. This is not just a story or near death. It is a return to purpose, a message from the spirit world, and an invitation to remember who you truly are. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and let this story find the part of you that needs healing the most. Enjoy. Hello, beautiful souls. We have another amazing guest for you today. And also another guest behind. I forgot to ask you what your puppy's name is as well. But today we've got Susan Grau to the show. So welcome. And her special little friend on the side there.
Yeah, Charlie.
Charlie. Okay, and Charlie. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So the way that we love to start the show is we always love to ask our guest, what inspired you to do what you do today?
I really believe it was spirit inspired, but after having the life journey that I had, which was very difficult, I decided to become a therapeutic teacher, basically, and then I became a therapist. So I kind of went from the first one to the next one, which is usually the opposite. And I was doing therapy work, and I was working with grief and addiction, and I kept knowing things. I just knew things, and people would say, how did you know that? I didn't tell you that. And I said, oh yeah, sure you did. No, I didn't. And it just started to unfold from there. And people told their friends, and they told their mothers and grandmothers and so on. And people started coming. But I think the inspiration behind it was I've had a very, like most, a very difficult life. Like most, mine's a little extraordinary, having a near-death experience. And I have two mothers and a brother that died by suicide. So, they transitioned in a different way. And so I had a lot of pain that I needed to resolve. And once I did, I knew I needed to help others with my knowledge.
I love that. And of course, my first question is, would you like to talk us through your near-death experience?
Certainly. I'd love to. So I was a little girl, and I was playing fort with some boys, and they told me that if I wanted to keep playing, I had to get them popsicles. And there was a freezer in the garage that we weren't allowed to go into the garage, but they opened the garage door, and I went strolling in to get in this freezer to get the popsicles, but it wasn't plugged in. And I was close to 5, but I didn't recognize it wasn't plugged in. 5-year-olds don't go look at the cord. And I climbed up, and I started to call out the flavors. What kind do you want? And I'm looking for them, and I can't find them. And I'm facing inward, obviously. And they kind of pushed me in and closed the freezer door. And I thought I was in on a game. I literally did not. I thought, surely they're not going to leave me in here. And so I wasn't afraid. I got trepidation, but I wasn't afraid. And then all of a sudden I heard the thud of the garage door. And I knew I'm in trouble. And it's just an innate feeling that you have. I just knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that I was going to die. Yet I didn't know what death was. But my being understood, my soul understood that I was in a very scary position right now. And I started screaming. Now, our garage was separated from our house by quite a distance. So my mother heard a faint sound that she thought were the cats that are in heat that were on the property. And that's what she thought. And I kept screaming, and I heard Susie stop screaming after I saw these three beautiful bright lights. And everything came to me in threes. It's just strange for me. Anyway, through these three beautiful bright lights, and I didn't stop. I kept screaming. Obviously, I was terrified that high-pitched sound scream. And then I heard it again. Susie, stop screaming. We're going to get your mommy. And I kind of felt like they were saying but first, but they didn't say the words. And the next thing I knew, I was at the bottom of a stairway. And I didn't look back and see my body. And most children I work with tell me they don't see their bodies, and it must be a fear factor for them. And I was at the bottom of these stairs, and I just knew I had to get to the top of this room. And this room had pillars, and it was old and cracked, and it had an open ceiling. And I knew inside this room was an open, just like the ceiling, it was an open something. And I needed to see it. That's all I knew. And the minute I thought it, I was on the edge of this, what I called the well. Now, I just want to preface it with this. I studied under Dr. Raymond Moody for my doctorate, and I asked him one time, why didn't I see the tunnel? Everybody sees the tunnel, and I didn't see the tunnel. And he said, have you ever thought that the well was your tunnel? That was an aha moment for me that stepped me back into my body, of just, wow, what was that? And I recognized that was my tunnel. But what I saw inside this well was all these words, and I could feel, not hear, but feel people praying. And they were saying things in like, my mother's got cancer. Please, God, don't let her die. I'm turning 16. Please have my mom buy me a car, or my dad get me a car. It was just all different types of energies coming into one consciousness. Looking back today, it looked like DNA spinning. Now, of course, I'm telling you the story from an adult perspective, because as a child, I couldn't have even found the words. But I had such a vivid memory of it. And it felt like they were all giving these wishes or dreams or prayers. And I understood what prayers were. And then it would just turn into one conscious energy coming up to where we were, me and the angels, my guides and angels. And I asked them, do you answer all those? And I thought, because I wanted to know if they did, because then I was going to get, I was going to pray. I was going to pray my life away, anything to get what I needed. And they said, no, Susie, sometimes what people desire the most isn't good for them. And I didn't like hearing that. I know my mom used to say that to me, just because you want it doesn't mean it's good for you. And I thought, why are they saying that to me? And that's all I got out of it. I didn't understand what they were actually trying to tell me. That we think we want something, but and the end result is not always what we think it's going to look like. And I had seen The Wizard of Oz, so I liken what the next thing I saw to that. If anybody has, everyone always asks me, how do you remember this so thoroughly? And I tell them, did you see The Wizard of Oz? Did you see the Yellow Brick Road? Do you remember Dorothy? Do you remember the Lion? Do you remember Oz? Do you remember the ruby slippers? And everyone says yes. And I go, it had a profound impact on you. And that's how it is there. It had a profound impact on me. And anyway, I looked straight ahead, and I saw this beautiful road that I called the Yellow Brick Road. And it was made of pavers. And I was watching humans paving their path. And what I saw were these pyramids, these 3 points. And they were going to this pyramid and pulling pavers that had created this pyramid from the bottom. And they were trying to pave their path. And I somehow knew that this was their life journey, and they were making it all messed up, out of balance, I would say today. And And I was watching them, and they would drop to their knees and they'd say, "For the love of God, nothing's working, nothing's going my way. Please help me, do something." And they were crying. And I remember feeling not a sadness, but I felt an angst. Like, why are they so upset? I didn't understand what they were doing. And then I watched these beautiful angelic beings come in, and they started pulling the pavers and putting them back to the bottom of the pyramid. And they went to the top and they were pulling these pavers off, and they were recreating themselves. Hence, I think we have different doors we can open, and we have past lives that we recreate our journey over and over and over. That's what I believe now is what I saw. Then it just looked like they were pulling from the top and they were coming back. And I watched them start paving the path. And I said, "What are you doing?" And I know they put these questions in my mind. They said, "We are the pavers. You are not. All you have to do is walk it." And I responded, "How do you know if you're walking it right?" Now, I know a child would not say that. So I know they put this in my head. And they say, "We bless and block everything. Make no mistake, you can get through a block battered and bruised at best, or you can shift. And if you see another block or wall, you shift again and again and again until you see us paving your path. What you try to control controls you, and what you run from chases you." I've never forgot those sentences. It's in my book. It's everywhere. It's my thing. I am so mesmerized by that statement because it's so true. Everything I try to control, I can't stop thinking about. So it's controlling me. And everything I run from comes in front of me again and again and again until I learn the lesson and I face whatever it is. And they said a few more things to me. And then I ended up in this room. I call them rooms, but they were places. But I didn't know what to call them. So I called them rooms. And I watched these beautiful. Now I'm almost 66, and I want to say that looking back on my life, I can clearly know that there weren't virtual things at that time. There weren't garage door openers, there weren't cell phones, there was nothing virtual. But they looked, what I would say today, virtual. They were tablets or books, and they were dropping in front of people. And I watched this family. And a little girl was saying, "I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I know I can do it." And it felt like a spirit child. And I know I can do it. I can handle it. My soul's going to grow so big. And she was so excited. And I watched these beautiful beings say, "That's a lot to handle in one lifetime. I just really want to discourage. Oh, no, I can do it." And it was this conversation. And somebody asked me on a podcast, "Do you think that was you?" And I was taken back, and I thought, wow, I never thought of that. That never entered my head. So as I go through my journey, I learn more and more about my experience still till this day. And then they looked at this young spirit and said, "Well, you do have free will." And they were gone. And I watched another group of spirits start moving through this room, this place. And I said, "Where did they go?" And they said they went to their next incarnation. Now, I didn't know what that meant. I had no clue. Again, later on in life, I was only about 13, and someone said, "Do you believe in reincarnation?" And I went, "Oh my God, that's that word. That's that word." And then I started studying it to find out what that meant. But I had never even tapped into it at all. It was just something I heard. And then I went to another place. I'm shortening this. I went to another place, and it was the room of companions. And it was our beautiful animals. And they were free and happy and young and playing and romping. And the place was, I call it the room, but it wasn't. It was a field full of dandelions and daisies, but they were colors I had never seen and smells that I had never experienced, beyond anything I can describe to you as a human. Even putting human words to this experience is so hard. It sounds so small and it's so big. And I remember seeing these animals come towards me, and I had an experience with a big dog. I don't know what it was. It looked like a dog to me, very big and beautiful. And I was sitting in this field and I looked to my left and I saw a mountain. And I wanted to climb up this mountain so bad because I saw something on the mountain and it was beautiful. And it just radiated love. This is one I hold back a lot, but I'm going to share it with you. I remember thinking, I just want to be near this being or whatever this is. I just want to be near it, and I couldn't. I was in that place on the ground, sitting and watching animals play, and I thought, I just want to feel this feeling. And the next thing I knew, this beam of indescribable love, I don't know how to describe it, came at me with all this warmth, and I was everything and I was nothing. I just was pure love. I was perfect in every way. I think I've spent my life looking for that love and trying to carry that to others and not knowing how, because I'm human. And then I went through some knowledge base there that was quite powerful. And then I remember looking around and I saw this beautiful rainbow cottage. It sounds so strange, but it was, and it was beautiful and bright, and it was all the colors of the rainbow, and it had a effervescence to it that I don't know how to explain. Like you could almost put your hands through it, but it was solid, kind of. And I watched this beautiful angelic being come out, and she was floating. And I was little. I was still me. And all I could think of was, I want to float. I hope I get to float. I'm certain I was floating, but that's all I thought. I want to float. And she said, it's time to go. And then I flashed into this area where there was this river, and it was moving very slowly and beautifully, and it was crystal clear, and it was just phenomenal. And I looked at the angels, and, just to say this, I want to say this. When the angels speak, or whatever these beings are, whatever we choose to call them, they're the same thing regardless. When they speak, the words and the music come out together. So it is why we love music, and it speaks to our soul so deeply. And I understood that. Like music was going to be part of my journey, very powerful, and it was a very powerful part of my journey because it heals us, it takes us to memories, it brings us feelings, it emotes, it makes us emote in so many deep ways. It even brings us compassion and love. And so there's so much to it. And they created it for us, for healing. And they said to me that I was going to go through a lot, and I thought, I didn't know what that meant, but I wasn't sure I liked what it sounded like. And they said, but you're going to see your mommy now, and you're going to help people. And I didn't know what that meant either, but I was always helping everyone, even before that. And the next thing I knew, I was stepping in the water. My mother said the whole time she was hearing, your baby's in the freezer. I had spoken to her from there, which was one of the things I didn't, share in one of the rooms. But I remember saying, Mommy, I'm in the freezer, Mommy, Mommy. And I could see her moving. She said that she could hear an echo, but she didn't know what it was. And maybe that was my first ability to speak with humans from the other side. My first lesson in mediumship. And my mother decided on the third scream, this time it was whispers, it became a scream. She went out and she said the garage door was closed. So she thought I wasn't in there. So she turned around to walk away, and something told her to go in. She opened up the garage door because I was too little to lift it. Garage doors were heavy then. And they were wood, solid wood. And she went to the freezer and opened it, and she turned me over, and I was ashen and blue-tipped fingers, and I wasn't breathing. And she pulled me, towards her, and she realized I don't know what to do. And so she dropped me to run to get a phone. She wasn't going to carry me to find a phone. She wouldn't get to it fast enough. And at those times, you couldn't bring the phone out to you. You had to go to where you dialed it. It was plugged into the wall. And she dropped me, and I cracked my chin, and I took a breath. And she butterflied me. And to be honest with you, she put me to bed. She had my sister put me to bed. And the reason is because she was afraid my father would be angry. And my father drank, and he wasn't violent, but he could get angry. And she said that she was supposed to turn it towards the wall and bolt it. And she didn't. And he hadn't been in there. And she was afraid he was going to blame her. So for a couple days, I was not present in every way. Now, she told my dad this story that night. My father worked in hospitals. He was a doctor of biochemistry, but he owned hospitals. And he came home, and she finally told him, like, what's wrong with her? Why isn't she? And my dad said, if she doesn't feel better tomorrow morning, we're going to take her to the hospital. In those days, they didn't just drag you to the hospital unless you had to go, And it was about probably 48 hours before I actually felt like myself. But when I opened my eyes, there were spirits everywhere. They were under my bed, in the corner of the room, down the hallway, and they were part of my journey. Now, I thought they were the boogeyman. I did not connect those dots, and I would cover my head and say, "Go away, go away, go away," or I'd stand at the edge of my doorway, and I wouldn't even go to the bathroom because I was afraid, because I could see them in the hallway. So I'd call my mom, and she knew. My mom and my sister and my brother had this gift. I had it prior to this. I used to see animals float when they would pass. They weren't my animals, but they were animals on the land, and they had transitioned, and I'd see them floating. And so I thought they were my animals. So at the end of the day, my mother just didn't want me to talk about it because they had hospitalized her and given her medications, and that's why she wasn't listening. She was heavily medicated. So she didn't want me to talk about it. And the few times that I did, I was told I was, crazy, bizarre. I used to play with them in our living room. My family called it the creepy room because they would hear me playing with spirits, and I would do it during the day, but at night I was afraid. And then it just became my abnormally normal life. They woke me at night and said, "I just died. I'm so-and-so. This is what happened. They think I did it on purpose. I didn't. Please tell them." And I'd hear so-and-so sister's best friend died. And the story matched. And throughout my journey, that would happen. So I decided to be a healer. I knew nothing about energy healing. Nothing. My Nana died. I called UCLA Medical Center. And because they were studying ESP, extrasensory perception, and that's what they knew about. And I told them what was happening. And the man said to me, "You sound like a medium." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Those are people who talk to the dead." And I hung up the phone, had a panic attack, didn't speak of it for a long, long time. But every time I was therapeutically working with someone, I was knowing things like their grandmother, their PTSD came from their grandmother dying. They didn't call it PTSD at the time, but that PTSD came from their grandmother dying, and they tried to revive them when they were little, and they'd say, "I didn't tell you that." And I'd say, "Oh, sure you did. Yes, you did." I thought they'd lock me up and take my license. So I wasn't going to share it, but then it kept building and building and building. So then I started investigating and going to people like James Van Praagh, Lisa Williams. I studied under a lot of people and learned how to harness it, basically, and understand it. But they would come up to me, these beautiful mediums, and say, "You had a near-death experience. I see them all around you." And I deny. James actually was, don't lie to me. I know it. I know I see it. And I started crying, and I said, "How do you know?" And he says, "I see spirits everywhere. Why aren't you using your gift?" And he actually really helped me. We became friends in some respect. And until this day, he says, "I don't remember the whole thing, but I remember you," and that's going way back. So that's my story.
What a story. I'm sitting here, goosebumps over goosebumps over goosebumps. there's so many things that came to mind, but then answered, because I was thinking, well, how could you go back to living a normal life after experiencing such a magical experience, which is amazing. It's truly like something out of a I can't even put it into words. It's so magical. Mm-hmm. So today, you obviously can control, because you obviously need some space, right? So they come to you. Do you ask to give me some space? Do you actually allow yourself to have space where they don't come interfering you and saying, hey, we're talking about spirits here, or do they just come and go as they please?
Both. So sometimes I'll be in a restaurant and I'll see someone eating and I'll see their mother behind them going, tell her I'm here, tell her I'm here. And I won't, because that's invading. I wouldn't want someone to do that with me. So I learned how to, it's like a dial, like a radio dial. And James actually taught me this, how to turn it up and down. And I had to master that. But I have to say, when you say, how did I do a normal life after that experience? Nothing about my life was normal. People think when you come back from a near-death experience that they're all protecting you and nothing's going to happen, and you're going to have this beautiful, magical life. And I had a very painful life. I was trafficked in my neighborhood as a child. I have 5 death by suicide in my family. I mean, I had a very tragic journey, and I know that it was there for me for a specific reason, because that's what I work with. I work with grief, loss, suicides, all different types of energy, and I've been able to help them because of what I've experienced and healed. So I have to say that there was nothing normal about my journey, and having a family members that had this gift, where they knew what I was thinking and where I was headed, and so it was hard, and also trying to keep it secret. So I married my husband. I didn't tell him. He didn't know anything about it. And I'd be laying in bed and someone would come to me and I couldn't sleep. And someone would come to me and say, I just died. And they didn't even wake me up. I was awake because I couldn't sleep. And then when it was over, I'd wake him and say, I can go to sleep now. And he'd look at me like I was nuts and say, yeah, well, why are you waking me to tell me that? Go to sleep. But I couldn't sleep. I was frozen. They do something with people who haven't accepted it yet. It's called paralysis. And because if they don't do that, many of us will just get up and run. We'll run to the bathroom. We'll put covers over our heads. We won't experience the experience they're trying to give us to teach us to grow. So they paralyze us basically, and we're laying there and we can't move. I would feel like I wasn't breathing, blinking, or anything. So by the time I woke them up, it was like this miracle. I was moving. And I was, free, basically, is what I thought. It was never scary at that point. I was so used to it that it was normal to me, even though I knew it was abnormal. And it's interesting. I work with children who have near-death experiences whenever I have the opportunity, which is not that often, but I do it when I can. And they say the same thing to me. It's like, it just became normal. Like I didn't think that it was different. I didn't know any different. So it just became normal. And some of them that have them later in life say to me, when the spirits would come, I thought they were evil and trying to hurt me because I didn't understand. And so I was able to help them through that. So that's why having these experiences that we have on this journey in our human experience, people say we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I say we're both. We're human beings having a spiritual experience also. We just aren't present. And when we're not present, we're not aware. And, if I were to say to you, probably you would know, but if I were to say to someone, you were outside today, what color were the flowers around you? They'd probably say, I don't know, because they're so busy in their head. And I say, how would you know if a spirit was there then? If you visually can't see something because you're not present in the moment, how would you see a spirit? How would you hear them, experience them, feel them, if you can't even visually see what's in front of you? So we have to be present. And that's one of the things I learned in order to, and spirit actually taught me that. They would paralyze me and I had to be present in order to understand what they were trying to tell me.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because my son and I have both had this conversation where we've had sleep paralysis, where it's actually been quite scary, Susan. It's not, it's like I can't move my body. I am completely paralyzed, but there's this, I'm consciously aware that there's something around me, but there is fear attached to it. And because it's abnormal, it doesn't feel right that I can't move my body. And my son's actually seen things when he's been in that sleep paralysis state, always had dreams as if they were so real, and then he goes to move his body and he can't. So you're saying that spirit does that specifically for us to be consciously aware of their presence.
Absolutely. And remember this whenever anyone goes to fear. I hope your audience hears this. What you fear, you feed. What you feed, you perceive. And what you perceive becomes your reality. So if I'm laying there and I go into fear, I'm now thinking there's something to fear in the room. And they're trying to teach me not to be afraid, that they're there to talk to me, to interact with me. And because I will make myself busy, they have to freeze me, basically. Now, they don't do it to me anymore, because when I wake up or when I feel them in the room, I'm consciously aware immediately, because I've been doing this so long. But think about what you would do. You'd fly out of bed and go, what is that? Right? So they don't have the opportunity to tell you they're there. And if you're in fear, it will feel like fear. So we want to remove the fear base and say, who are you and why are you here? In our heads, it's telepathy. And even though we're frozen, they haven't harmed you yet. So that's a good indication that they're not going to. I'm still here. I'm still, breathing and alive and doing well. And so that paralysis, the only fear I feel is my thinking, because they've never harmed me. They're not there to harm us.
That is so true. But I have felt this heaviness on my chest, as if someone is sitting on my chest. And at times I felt pulled, like my ankles being pulled from like the bottom of my bed in sleep paralysis. But then it could be the fact that I've activated the fear within me. And it's as if I'm trying to scream out to wake up, but I can't talk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is our fear activating that. I truly believe that if there were evil spirits in the room, they would not just pull your legs. You go flying, you'd go out the window, there would not be just a leg pulling. If they were truly evil, think about what evil is. And so when I think about that, I go, oh, wait, that wouldn't make any sense. I really feel that they're trying to get us to settle, and they don't know how, and this feeling that something's laying on my chest. I've had people try to hug me. They're trying to soothe me, and I can't breathe. And then I go, stop doing that. I'm saying this in my head to them. I can't breathe and you're frightening me. Instant stop. They don't want to frighten us. But I'm creating fear out of it. And it's a natural thing for us to do when we can't breathe. But you have to remember, they're not breathing. They're spirits. So they don't really relate to what's happening in our bodies at that moment. They're just trying to get our attention.
So how do you obviously work with them? Are you working with them? So when you have these, individuals that come and see you, they've had near-death experiences, who are then in the same situation where they are now seeing spirit. Are you coaching them or training them how to work with spirit, or are you working with the individual and their spirit? If that makes sense, the spirits around them.
Both. All of the above. I work with the individual and the spirit to help them understand what the spirit's trying to get across to them. But I also teach high-level metaphysics. So I bring people into my room. I do it as a group teaching, and I teach them how to connect in and how to see them with their eyes. What does that look like for them?
How interesting. That's really fascinating. And what would have been some of your biggest learnings working with spirit?
Well, I think most importantly is that we're not alone. But I think the most relief I've ever felt working with spirit is them telling me they can't read my mind and they can't see anything private. Because I think I'd lose my mind if they could read my mind. That would be horrible for me. And if they could see me, taking showers and all that, that would really, they're interested in the love. So what I've learned from them truly is that they are connected into us through love base. They come with the highest vibrations. So the more you love, the higher you vibrate. And I think everyone knows that just innately, right? We know if we love, we feel this high vibrational energy. And so the goal is to be in a place of love so that we can vibrate higher. And the higher we vibrate, the closer we are to them.
So it's not the other way. So it's not, because I know it's interesting. We're talking about, when you're talking about vibrational frequencies, so the higher vibrational frequency we are, the more closer we are to spirit, therefore the more connected we are to spirit. And yet for those that are going through trauma, going through a loss, going through grief, which is what you were speaking about, that is a lower vibrational frequency. So how do you... so how do you help them get to that high vibrational frequency when they're experiencing a loss or a grief, which I know you've worked with a lot of individuals that actually experience that lower vibrational frequency, to be able to connect to the loss of a loved one?
So I liken it to the sloth, the butterfly, and the hummingbird. Grief is slow. Grief is low in vibration movement, right? And so when we're in grief, we're like the sloth. All those sloths are beautiful and I love them to pieces. They're very slow moving. Vibrationally, they move very slow. And I consider the medium the butterfly. They're just about halfway there. And then the hummingbird would be the spirit. By the time the hummingbird moves to all the places they've gone to, the sloth hasn't even moved its head. So by the time the sloth sees that the hummingbird's there, it's gone to 60,000 places and given 100,000 signs and messages. So grief is the lowest vibration next to rage, next to hate, unfortunately. And I tell them to be right where they are. That it's not important, that if they need to get the message, they'll get it through someone else. People always say to me, they went to my sister instead of me. My husband went to my sister. Why didn't he come to me? And I said, because you're in grief. You're in a different kind of grief. You're low vibrating right now. They will come to you when they can, but the way to get to you was through them. They don't love them more. They don't care more about them. They don't want to heal them more. They simply can't reach you right now. And let that be okay, because if they want to reach you, they will. They will find a way. And they used your sister-in-law for that, or your sister for that. So what I tell people is that give yourself a moment and feel what you feel and be where you are. We want to change it rapidly because we want the connection. They'll come in the dreams when you're not vibrating either way. When you're just at the peace level, the peace place. They'll find a way to get to you. The way that I tell people is that as time goes on, it might be a week, it might be a month, it might be 6 months, we don't know. You'll hear something that makes you laugh. There's a high vibrational energy. And so I want you to look for the signs. Or at that moment, remind yourself. Or somebody turns on a song and you start singing it and it makes you feel good. Look at that moment for the signs, because they know then. They become very aware when you are in a higher vibrational energy. But that doesn't mean they're not aware of you in a low vibration. They just can't reach us because we can't become aware of them. But they still know we're there. And they're still there to help us as much as they can.
Yeah. And you were saying before, like when these spirits were communicating with you, it was through music. And obviously just now you're talking about a way to lift our vibrational frequency is through music. Is a way to lift our spirit and for them to be able to communicate. Is that correct? So the higher, the higher, and does it matter what kind of music?
Well, I think if you listen to music that makes you cry and sad, you're dropping into grief. But when you hear something that brings back a memory and you start laughing or you start smiling, the simplest thing, just smiling, which who wants to do that when they're grieving? Nobody. Nobody wants to put on music. And in fact, we do the opposite. We put on sad music and we want to emote, and that's okay. But just know that they will find a way to give the message, whether it be through someone else, whether it be that something happens that raises your vibration for a few moments, but they will find a way. So don't be dismayed. Allow yourself to be right where you are. They will meet you where they are to the best of their ability. The question isn't, are they meeting you? The question is, are you seeing them meet you?
And then how do you tell the difference between intuition and imagination? For example, let's say you're in a high vibrational frequency. I've just listened to this really cool song. I'm vibing. I'm really high. And then all of a sudden things drop in. How do we identify the difference between imagination and intuition?
It wouldn't matter, would it? And let me tell you why. So when you become aware that something's changed in your energy field, and you hear something, let's just say you hear it in your head, and you say, I wonder if that's my loved one, but what if I'm wrong? What if I'm making it up? Your loved one heard that. They know you're thinking of them, and they say to themselves, oh, she's going to listen that way because she just did. Even though it wasn't me then, she thought she heard me. So now I'm going to come all the time that way because I know she's listening. So you can't be wrong. You may be wrong in that moment, but the minute the spirit world knows, your loved one knows, they aren't the author of confusion. They're the author of clarity, and they're the author of peace. So they're not trying to confuse us. So the minute they know that you're going to listen that way, they're going to come that way. And so just accept it. If you can just accept it. Oh, okay. I'm just going to say, whether it's right or wrong, I'm going to let them know that I'm going to listen that way. And then before you know it, here it comes.
And obviously, depending on, because obviously some people are kinesthetic, others are auditory, others are, visual. So the communication piece will come to us depending on our style of communication?
Well, it's actually depending upon our awareness at the time. So if I'm not aware of my thoughts that day, they might come outside of me. So where am I being aware? That's that thing about being present, being in those moments. When you are present, they'll suit up and show up to help you. Recognize that they're there.
And do you call on them, like, I'm just thinking about praying, because I know praying, some individuals practice as a real, a daily practice of praying for assistance or guidance. Is that something that you do? You call on them for when you're feeling stuck, when you have a question, when you need some guidance? Do you actually call on them to assist you?
I do. And in fact, I invite them into my world every morning and say, usurp my free will if it's for my greatest good. So I may not like what it feels like to have my free will taken away from me in that moment, if I'm doing something that I really want, but I know that they'll be for my greatest good. I know this. I ask them for what I need, and if it is for my greatest good, they will give it. It may not be that moment, but they will offer it to me at some point. And I need to be patient in that. I know they heard me the first time. So I trust them explicitly. I don't pray to them like I did when I was a child, saying it over and over and over again, thinking maybe this time they'll hear me if I want it bad enough. They already know how bad I want it. So the first time I say it to them, they've heard me. Am I trusting that they heard me is the question. So when I have to pray over and over, for me, this is strictly for me, and I honor everyone's belief system, I truly do. But for me, I'm saying, I didn't trust you heard me. So now I'm going to manipulate you. So I have this thing. The first time I communicate with someone, it's a conversation. The second time I'm telling them the same thing, it's a manipulation. And the third time I have to say it, it becomes toxic. So I use those tools with spirit. If I've said it to you once, I know you heard me. If I say it to you 2 and 3 times, I know I'm wanting what I want, regardless of what you want for me. I'm trying to manipulate it and beg you for it. And I'm becoming toxic in it because now I think I'm not getting it because I didn't pray right. So I try not to do that. I just let them know and then I let them do their thing. That doesn't mean that I've never done that. When I get really frightened, I drop into all the same things that everyone else does, but I try that practice. I try to utilize that practice because I trust them. I trust them.
I love that.
It's that simple.
I'm thinking for me, when I quite often I'll talk about this, when I ask for something, it's like I'm projecting I don't have it. And so there's this real shift in consciousness for me, is that I accept that I have it all. So rather than asking for it, because you mentioned it before, that a lot of us ask and it's not always the right thing for us. And there's this real thing for me by asking, is when we're asking, we're projecting that we don't have it. And so the shift in consciousness there is just to accept and know that it's arriving in itself. Absolutely. Right? So whether it's love, whether it's money, whether it's health, whatever that may be, that whatever we are experiencing in the moment, there's a lesson. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about
Absolutely.
that?
I agree 100%. You said just what I said in a different way, in a much more eloquent way, honestly. So when I ask them, or when I say to them, I desire this, for me, it becomes my reality at that moment. Not always. I'm human, having a human experience, but most of the time I can do that. And I know they've heard me, and if it's for my greatest good, it will come to me. So I don't need to push the river, basically. I let the river flow around me. I always picture myself sitting, or standing in a river, and I have my hands up, and the river is drowning me. It's going over my head because I'm making it do that. With my hands up in the air, it's flowing over me. If I put my arms down, it goes around me. So I always remember not to push the river. And just let that river flow, let myself flow with them. Do I always do it? Absolutely not. Do I remember to do it? Yes. But then I think, oh, it's not working, and I want what I want. That's what they were saying when I was there about banging my head against the wall. I can get through anything battered and bruised at best, any wall they put in front of me, but they bless and block everything. And if I see a wall, don't bang your head against it. We'll have people join us doing that. We'll go, come join me banging my head against the wall because I know it's supposed to look like this. And we convince everyone that it's supposed to look like this instead of releasing it and shifting. And then trusting that it looks the way they want it to look. And that's back to that, what I try to control controls me. So even in my, what we would call prayers, if I'm trying to control how they handle the request, it's controlling me. And especially if I can't let go of it at that point. So what I try to do is I ask them for what I feel I desire. And that desire becomes the now for me. Not always, but I try very hard. And then I release it to them and say, I'm not going to let it control me anymore. I'm going to trust you'll bring it to me at the right place, the right time, and the right moment. And I always remind myself it's their timing, their way, their outcome. And when I remind myself of that, I'm not banging my head against a wall.
Yeah. So you're using the obstacles as a way to show you forward. So when you hit an obstacle, rather than try to get through it, you go around it and you shift your perspective or shift your direction.
You shift the direction. I don't go around it. I can't go around it, under it, or over it. But I can bang my head to get through it. I've made things happen that shouldn't have happened, and they have not turned out good. I can say that. So it doesn't mean you don't try, but I'm talking about a hard stop. I'm not talking about things being difficult. We have obstacles all our lives. But when you have a hard stop in front of you, it's a hard stop. Every way you turn, you're getting stopped. It's not working every direction. And that means it's time to back away from that and shift your perspective, maybe shift your desire, shift your energy, and look elsewhere, looking around, what's around me, what needs to change here? Not, how do I change it? How do I change me? What do I need to do differently? I've got this little saying, when someone else is my problem is me, and that's the good news. I can do something about that. If I'm not the problem, there's no solution. That's because I can't change anything but me. So I change my perspective, things shift for me. And once that happens, things start to unfold. You know, the wall lets down, it falls down. When I'm in that right place, when I'm on their path, the wall drops. And again, that doesn't mean there's not obstacles, because I get in my own way all the time. I picture it as having like 5 doors in front of me. You know, we have free will. And they shared that with me in the room of knowledge. And I know that we have free will. So say I have 5 doors in front of me and I walk in one door and there's a narcissist. And I have a choice. I can marry that narcissist, which we do, or I can turn around and walk out and not go through another door. I've learned something both ways. Neither one is good or bad. I've learned something both ways. Pain and beauty and wonder and happiness and joy are equal in value. They both teach us something. So I know that. So there's no right or wrong door. There's just, what am I wanting to learn right now? So I hope as I go through the door and I see every reason to turn around that I'm going to. I don't always, but that I'm hoping I will. And then I learn to shift that energy.
So there's still a level of, I love that, absolutely, because I was thinking about how does free will come into that? There's still a level of wanting, the desire that you speak about. And then it's a matter of having a desire, releasing it to spirit, allowing spirit to decide whether it's right or not right for you, and then follow the signs. They will show you the way.
Follow the signs. I love it. Follow the signs. So I know for me, as an empath, and you probably understand this, empaths we fill holes in people, and narcissists have a, God-sized hole, I call it. And we can fill that. So it not to the level that spirit world can, but definitely we fill the hole. And so they are attracted to us. It's not what's wrong with us. It's what's right with us. We are beautiful beings that are beautiful and giving. And however, I know when I'm in the field of a narcissist, I know this doesn't feel right. And I convince myself it does, because I don't want to make a change, or I'm afraid, or whatever the reasons are. And 6 months later, I'll go, I knew it. And here I am in that pain. But at the time, I want it to be different. So therefore, I go with my free will, where they've shown me clearly who they are, and spirit has given me the message, but I go with it anyway. That's a free will choice. I could say, I'm going to listen to my instincts, my intuition, and what spirit's showing me clearly, something's not right, and back away. And then decide, at a distance. If I do that, most of the time, I won't step back into that arena. So it's learning how to care for ourselves in a way that we're listening to our intuitive hits, because they are speaking to us. And intuition is internal, it's in our gut. And mediumship is external, it's outside of us. It's too high of a vibration to be inside of us. We may have it come in and hear it that way. However, it's the vibrational energies outside of us. So I know when I'm in mediumship, I'm stepping outside of myself. And when I'm in intuitive, I'm listening to my gut and my soul.
I've never heard it explained that way. It makes a lot of sense. So I'm big on intuitive and intelligence, but I guess what you're explaining too, as a soul, we've come here, we don't judge whether it's good or bad. We've come here to experience, right? So whether even intuitively, it's not right for you, what are the lessons or the learnings in this process, even if it's 6 months, a year, some longer. I love the way that you describe that.
Yeah.
I would love to unpack your book, which is sitting right there next to you, Infinite Life and Infinite Lessons.
I have them everywhere.
Oh, great. It's such a beautiful book. Would you like to talk us through that?
You see the pyramid.
Yes.
It's an upside down pyramid, and it's got the 3 lights. I love this book, and it's Hay House, and you can get it anywhere. This book is so spirit-filled. We have infinite lives, infinite lessons. So I start out talking about the light within the darkness being in the freezer. What happened to me? And then I move through the rooms of heart's desires and all the other rooms that I saw, creating our contracts. What does that mean for us? Walking among what we call the dead. having those experiences. Becoming a medium is all about helping others learn to connect with the spirit world. I'm kind of going down the list. Visitations, how do we learn about the signs and the different experiences? I go from that into mastering fear and harnessing intuition. How do you do that? How do you know the difference? How do fear is very dark. It's heavy, just to sum it up very quickly, easily. Very dark, very heavy, very overwhelming. It feels panicky. Intuition comes in smooth and easy. You may not like the message, but it comes in smooth and easy. And when you remember that, so if you're sitting there and someone's not home yet and you go to, they must have had a car accident, I'm going to call the hospital. You're in fear base. You're in that panic mode. But if you go, intuitively, I'm feeling this, it may cause you fear, but you're stepping into that intuition space of, okay, everything's okay. They're just running late. They're, or whatever it is, whatever the message is, comes in smooth. Healing from grief. I'm a grief therapist. It's one of the things I love to do the most, is help people heal from grief. So I have a really long chapter on that. I have a lot in here in their own words. There's sidebars of people who have worked with me and helped them, and Spirit has helped them heal, through my work. Impasse, the path of the heart, talks all about how to understand that from the Spirit's perspective. This is all from the Spirit's perspective, not mine. My little of mine's in there, but most of it's them. The gift of love, and that's about self-love and pure love, which is their love. So that's all the chapters in my book, and it goes in depth. It is phenomenal. People who read it tell me, so far, I've been told that they've read it over and over and over again, and it's helped them heal, because I have integration moments and I have workbook in the back of every chapter of how to understand what that chapter meant for you. So it's a beautiful book.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll have that in the show notes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan, the way that I'm conscious of your time as well, and the way that we love to wrap up the show is to ask our beautiful guest, what would be those 3 shiny gold nuggets that you would like to leave for our audience today?
Well, we talked about fear versus intuition, which would have been one of those beautiful gold nuggets, is understanding that what fear feels like and what intuition feels like. When you start to wrap yourself around that, you start to learn how to listen to your intuition. So remember, fear is dark and heavy. It feels panicky. Intuition comes in smooth and easy. When you understand that, even if it's a scary situation, it comes in smooth and easy. Like, back away from that elevator. Don't get in that Uber. They're talking to us all the time through our intuitive hits. And also I have awareness, acceptance, and action. We become aware they're in the room. This is the way I teach mediumship. Maybe it gets cold. Maybe our hair stands on end. We get goosebumps. We become aware that something is happening, a change. And they become aware we're aware. And then we accept that they're there. Something's there. Maybe not them, but something is there. And they're accepting something's there. They come closer. And then action. And all action is trust. I trust my loved one is trying to speak to me. And they go, she's trusting it. I'm all in. So that's the way we get to the place where we can hear them, sense them, understand them, feel them. It's just a 3-step rule I use. And I use it every day automatically in my readings. And then signs from our loved ones and connecting. So I just taught you connection, but the signs from the loved ones, things that are different. I can see a butterfly every day, and I don't think of my mother. And then that one time, the butterfly comes and I go, Mom, I can feel it. I can feel the message. You want to tap into that feeling. It's called clairsentience. It is the feeling. Clair just means clear. It's a clear feeling that you're experiencing. And as that comes in, I'm noting it. And then I know it's coming from her, because I don't do it every time. Or I'll see a hummingbird. And that one time that hummingbird comes up to my window and sits there and stares at me. I know that's someone trying to talk to me. So the signs that they give us, it is different. It's not just, we all see hummingbirds. We all do see them. So it's learning the difference of what that feels like. I had an experience where, I see hawks, but I happened to see one sitting on a fence looking in my window. My husband went out and said, "This hawk is staring in the window. Why?" And I was told right before that from a medium that I was going to see a hawk, and I kind of laughed it off. And I had seen it in a tree prior to that. And the neighbor called me out and said, "Look at that hawk sitting in the tree." Now, why would my neighbor tell me to look at that? So what? A hawk's in the tree, right? It's cool, but what's the big deal? Then it ends up, I dismissed it. That medium, that was just a coincidence, what they told me. Then when it was sitting on the fence, it became very powerful for me. It didn't leave till I came out and said, "All right, I'm trusting it." And it never came back. So that is a sign. And it was from my mother, and it was a clear sign. So we have to connect the dots, but it shouldn't be I'm making it up. So I hope that made sense for people, that there's a different feeling when you're receiving a sign than just an every ordinary day.
Yeah. And is it always spirits that you know of, or you've been had a relationship with or related to, or can be any spirit?
I feel that it can be any spirit, but we don't pay the same attention. So how we know the difference is familiarity. So when we get a message from a random spirit, which I call them flybys, by the way, when a flyby comes, I go, okay, that's a message from a random spirit. I might be running into their loved one later on, and it will make sense to me at that moment. Or I might be doing a reading, and that's not a spirit I know. So there's a difference in the feeling. It feels distant. I don't have familiarity. When my loved ones come in, it's familiarity. I'm familiar with that love, that scent, that smell, that feeling. I'm familiar with that knowing. And then I know it's them.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Susan, I could keep you here for another hour or two just talking about this. It's so wonderful. And I'm sure that our audience is just going to love this conversation. And it's so intriguing because it's not a conversation you have very often. And it is one of those things that we fear so much, yet we're all heading there. Like when we talk about, death or even a near-death experience, I'm always intrigued. I don't like. We were talking about Anita Morjani before. It's not one of those things where it happens often. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people reaching out with lots of questions, as I have many questions myself as I'm sitting here. I want to say thank you so much for sharing your wealth of wisdom, your love. Like when you speak from the heart. I can really feel you being an empath. Really feel you. And I wish you the best with your new book. It's so beautiful. It's divine. It glows from the corner. It's beautiful. It shines through.
I love it. Thank you.
Absolutely beautiful.
I have a sanctuary. It's called the Infinite Soul Sanctuary that I just opened, and every 3 weeks I teach, and it goes with the membership. And I do teaching that people have paid a lot of money to have from me that I don't charge extra for. And they're loving it. And then we put the recording on the sanctuary so that people that can't watch it at the time get to go back and watch it. And it's Zoom teaching. And I'm teaching beginner mediumship in a couple weeks. And I have guests also. But last week, and I'm going to be doing numerology and all kinds of things, but last week's week was an empath. So you're an empath is the class.
Amazing. So for those that are interested, we'll have that in the show notes. You run Zoom classes on different topics on a regular basis. And so do these classes as well, do you also pick up from when spirits want to come forward and speak to somebody within the group? Does that ever happen to you?
All the time. I do live events all the time. Yeah. And I do some of them for free for people that can't afford it. I do it on Instagram under Susan Grau Official. But the sanctuary is really cool because there's so much more to it. It's not just meeting me. It's a community where I have put what I put in my book, my heart and soul. They go and they get positive affirmations. They get tarot. They get horoscope, astral projections. I mean, it's just covered with learning. It's covered with learning about the spirit world. And that's what I want to do is I want people to cover themselves in the spirit world because it's so beautiful.
That is gorgeous. Thank you so very much. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience that I haven't asked a question or anything else? We'll have everything in the show notes, your links to everything. But is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
I'd like them to know that not only are they love, but they are loved. They are loved. No matter what happens, people ask me, why would they save this person and take my son? I work with a lot of loss, and I tell them they didn't take your son. I'm sure they tried to save him. I have no doubt. They love us. They are not the authors of hurting us, at no more than they are the authors of confusion. They are there to help us. Sometimes our bodies can't take us back in, or sometimes our free will makes choices that we can't change. And we have to remember that. But they're not picking and choosing someone to be more important than us individually. The most important path of your journey, the soul path, is truly at the end of the day. Yes, my soul path is to help people heal, et cetera, et cetera. But the final end of my soul path is self-love. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do.
It's true. So true. So true. Love it. Once again, Susan, I want to say thank you for coming on the show, sharing your wealth of wisdom and your love. And I can't wait to hear all about the group that you run. I'm interested in looking into it. And I just want to say thank you again for coming on and sharing your book and your story. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I've loved it.
Me too. Thank you so much. Thank you.